The corridor lights of Ramaris. 12 flickered like they were trying to wink at me, which would have been charming if they weren't government-issued and prone to exploding. I'd been traveling for months, scraping credits from job to job, and the moment I saw the words cheap room, no questions on a holo sign, I practically heard a choir. Sure, the sign was glitching so badly the no questions part occasionally turned into no oxygen. But I chose faith. The landlord barely looked at me. He waved his scanner, grunted at my ID chip, and handed over a room key shaped like it had survived 3 previous fires. "Your roommate works nights," he said, already walking away. Very quiet, very clean, very nocturnal. I didn't like the way he stretched that last word, but the room was cheap enough to make me ignore every red flag waving like an airlock alarm. Inside, the place was smaller than I expected. Half bunk, half storage closet, with a faint hum in the walls like something mechanical was whispering to itself. I tossed my bag down and tried to tell myself everything was normal. That lasted 4 seconds. The door slid open behind me with a soft hiss, and there she stood. Long ears tapering gracefully past her jaw, skin faintly luminescent in the low light, eyes wide as if I were the intruder. For a moment we stared at each other like 2 citizens realizing there's only one escape pod left. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual and definitely failing. "I'm your new roommate." She flinched as though I'd shouted. "Oh, sorry," she said quickly, voice soft but jittery. "Didn't know you arrived early. I usually avoid daylight people." I laughed nervously. "Yeah, daylight people can be terrible. Always doing daytime things." Her long ears twitched. "I don't drink blood," she blurted. "Okay," I said, because that seemed like the safest response. "Good to know. I also don't drink blood. Mutual hobby." She winced again, covering her face with her hands. "That came out wrong. I meant, my species absorbs energy." Right on cue, the lights dimmed a few degrees. She sighed like the universe had just tattled on her. I swallowed. Am I at risk of being unplugged?" Her eyes widened with horror. "No, never. I would never drain a daylight person. You're so fragile." She said it with the same concern someone might use for a soap bubble. The wall hum deepened, and she stepped back quickly, as if afraid her presence alone might make the lights faint. "I'll stay on my side," she said. "Very far, very still." "Great," I said. "I'll also stay very still. For balance." She tried to smile. Her ears drooped adorably instead, and to my own surprise, a strange warmth replaced the fear. She seemed more terrified of me than I was of her. Somewhere beyond the colony walls, a distant boom rattled the floor panels. She stiffened, listening. I pretended I didn't hear it, because admitting danger on the first night felt rude. "Well," I said, forcing a grin, "at least rent is cheap." Her ears twitched again. "There's usually a reason for that." Living with a nocturnal alien whose ears twitched at every sound turned out to be less terrifying and more, surprisingly domestic. By the second night, I'd learned that she padded around so quietly, I only knew she was awake when the room's devices politely lost 10% battery. My datapad once shut off mid-sentence and she whispered "sorry" from across the room like she'd just broken a sacred relic. She was careful with everything, especially me. Whenever I moved, she froze, like sudden human motion might activate some hidden vampire alarm. Meanwhile, I tried to show her humans were resilient by cooking dinner. This was a mistake. The colony stove wasn't designed for earth pans, and the moment I turned it on, it fired a plasma spark the size of a melon. She dove behind a chair. I dove behind her. The stove hummed in victory. After the smoke cleared, she lifted her head. "Is your species always this combustible?" "Only on weekdays," I said, fanning the last of the smoke. "Weekends we try to slip in some dignity." Her ears drooped in amusement, or possibly pity. In return, she tried to show me her own daily, nightly routine. She demonstrated how she fed, reaching toward a dying light panel in the hallway. As she drew closer, The glow seeped into her fingertips like threads being pulled home. The panel dimmed but didn't go out, and she brightened just slightly, a soft shimmer outlining her form. "That's it?" I asked. "No fangs? No dramatic cape?" She looked genuinely confused. "Why would I wear a cape?" "It's cultural," I said. "Human vampire tradition. Basic stuff." Her ears lifted. "I can try one if it will make you comfortable." It absolutely would not. Even as we joked, I noticed the darker shadows under her eyes when she returned each morning. Whenever I asked where she went, she brushed it off. "Night errands," she'd say. "Boring things." But the colony had been experiencing rolling blackouts, and the jokes stopped feeling funny when half the district went dark one night and she returned looking faint, like her glow had been peeled away. I wanted to press her for answers, but she distracted me by panicking over my laundry. I'd left socks on the floor. She approached them like they were alien artifacts that might detonate on touch. "Is this normal human skin shedding?" she whispered. "They're socks," I said. "Just socks." She poked one with a pen. Life shouldn't have felt comfortable, not with danger humming outside and secrets tightening in the air. But somehow our ridiculous little coexistence made the room feel warmer than any place I'd stayed in months. Even the walls seemed to listen quietly, pulsing with their soft, mechanical heartbeat. Still, every time the lights flickered, she tensed like someone was calling her name from very far away. And every time, she pretended she hadn't heard it. The colony went dark in a way that made the usual flickers feel polite. The hum of machinery stuttered and died, leaving only the distant clatter of alarms somewhere far down the corridor. I yelped, tripping over my own bag as I scrambled toward the small glow of my datapad. Her long ears twitched in the shadows, alert and rigid, as if she'd been expecting this. "They found me," she whispered, voice tight but steady. "Energy hunters. They follow those like me." I blinked. "Hunters? Seriously? In the middle of a colony that sells frozen noodles for triple credit?" She didn't smile. "Hunters don't care about noodles. Only about energy. Only about survival." Her eyes glimmered faintly in the dark, reflecting the dim emergency lights now sputtering along the corridor. For a second, I considered running in the opposite direction. Then I realized that if I left, she'd go alone. And if she went alone, she wouldn't come back. Somehow, in a room full of jittery habits and accidental plasma fires, she'd become the one who mattered. "All right," I said, straightening up. "Let's survive. Together." My words sounded more confident than I felt. We moved through the colony carefully, dodging falling ceiling panels and malfunctioning drones. She led, sensing energy fluctuations with her fingertips brushing the walls, guiding me around traps I would have walked straight into. I tried to help by tossing small devices to jam the sensors of the scavenger bots, which mostly exploded in tiny, harmless sparks. She ducked each explosion gracefully, ears flicking, while I flailed and muttered apologies. At the core of the colony, the hunters had already begun siphoning power from the main conduits. She stepped forward, eyes closing, and I saw her glow intensify. Energy streamed into her from the damaged circuits, pulsing visibly along her skin like liquid light. I held my breath as she drew it away from the main systems, rerouting it through herself instead of letting the colony die. "You're incredible," I said, ducking as a bolt of energy arced near my head. Her lips quirked in a small, tired smile. "I told you only humans are fragile." We made it to the central hub, where the remaining power units hummed weakly. She channeled her energy again, this time in a controlled burst, and the colony systems flickered back to life. The hunters, blinded by the sudden surge, scrambled into the shadows, leaving behind an eerie silence. I laughed shakily. "So, roommate saves the colony. Check. I cook nothing but sparks. Check." She shook her head, amused despite exhaustion. "I didn't do it for you," she said. "I did it because I had to survive. You just got lucky." I realized she was right, and yet I didn't feel like luck. I felt changed. Months of wandering, scraping credits, and fearing strangers had been replaced by something far stranger and far better. The knowledge that trust could form between the most unlikely beings, that companionship could exist where fear once ruled. By dawn, the colony was alive again, humming with routine. We returned to our tiny room, both tired but oddly comfortable. I hung my socks, she adjusted a glowing panel. Her long ears twitched in the sunlight that managed to pierce our window. "Morning humans smell funny," she muttered. I chuckled. "And aliens smell like energy?" "Mostly like stress," she said. And for the first time, her humor wasn't jittery. We shared a quiet laugh, the kind that fills empty rooms and leaves space for trust. And in that moment, I realized that a cheap room and a long-eared alien roommate had given me more than I expected. Survival, laughter, and the strange, fragile joy of connection.